We've all heard of the Battle of the Bulge and the invasion of Normandy, but now a lesser-known World War II operation is getting its turn in the spotlight. The film The Monuments Men, hitting theaters Friday, is based on the true story of a team of museum directors, curators, and historians on a mission to rescue art from Nazi looting and destruction. Here's a look at the film, starring and directed by George Clooney.
You can wipe out a generation of people, you can burn their homes to the ground, and somehow they'll still come back. But if you destroy their achievements and their history, then it's like they never existed.
So how accurately does The Monuments Men portray the real-life recovery of precious art? WGBH Arts editor Jared Bowen saw an early screening of the film yesterday. So I was unaware that they were actually doing this during the war. I thought it was all after.
No, it had come to the attention of a lot of art curators, museum directors, conservationists, both in Europe and the United States, that these pieces of art were being looted, essentially, that they were taken out of, obviously, private homes, largely Jewish homes, that they were taken out of institutions, museums, collections, libraries. But not only that, this team was sent to Europe to persuade the Allies not to bomb certain institutions. And, of course, you know how arts are often seen, so they weren't always welcomed in these camps, but that was their charge, to protect them from bombings and to start to trace these works so that they could return them to their rightful owners.
But a lot of them were destroyed.
A lot were destroyed. I mean, there was a dictum that came later on toward the end of the war where Hitler signed it himself, a decree saying that if he were to lose or he were to die, then this work had to be destroyed. It was either going to be all his or it was going to be destroyed.
I want to bring another voice into this. As Jared mentioned earlier, efforts are underway. Victoria Reed is the curator for provenance at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's her job to investigate the history of the pieces in the museum's collections.
That's
and as we know through the years, the MFA has been quite transparent about this. You ended up with looted art, as museums all over the world did. But it's been an ongoing thing. It didn't correct itself right away, did it?
No, I mean, there was, immediately after the war, a tremendous push to recover works of art that had been looted, to return them to their countries of origin, and then to restitute those works of art to their rightful owners. And there was artwork that ended up in the United States in the immediate post-war period that was identified, but a lot of artwork continued to change hands and ended up in the private homes, in museums, passing through auction houses, and the work continues today to identify these works of art.
Does the MFA still have pieces that are questionable?
Well, the work is ongoing. We have de-accessioned, removed from the collection a number of works of art and returned them. We have also reached financial settlements for other works of art. In other words, basically buying them a second time from their rightful owners. And I'm continuing to go through the collection to find works of art whose provenance might be unclear during the Nazi period. And we have works of art that are high priority for this ongoing work featured on our website, so that if people have additional information, they have a means of not only locating the works of art, but contacting us about them.
So are there examples of some of the stuff that was recovered?
Well, I know that you have certainly looked in, and we should also bear in mind that this film leaves, I think these are some of the pieces that we're seeing now that the MFA has identified.
That we're featuring on our website.
Ah.
Yeah.
But we should also remember that even in 2012, I mean, here we're nearly 70 years after the war, and in 2012 an entire stash of materials was discovered in Munich, and the lineage is still, they're still trying to determine where that came from. Again, we're still looking at some of the MFA pieces, but in Munich, this whole stash of about 1,400 pieces was discovered from this man who was the son of a dealer who was working with the Nazis. So we say that 5 million pieces have already been returned, but you have probably no sense, and you can probably answer better than I do, how much is remaining out there when you think about how much they collected and put in salt mines and castles and just stored everywhere.
And it wasn't just the Nazis.
No, that's right. A lot of works of art were taken during the war, you know, even by American soldiers might have brought things back. So, for example, we had a little embroidery in our collection that we de-accessioned in 2010, and that had been taken out of a museum in Italy. And that wasn't...
By who?
We don't know. We don't know.
And who did you give back to the museum? Or?
We give it back to the museum, yes. It was the museum in Trent. and other works of art have made their way into the United States, perhaps taken by U.S. soldiers. We don't always know, but not every work of art that was displaced during this time was a result of Nazi confiscation, although there was certainly a lot of that. There were also Jewish residents of Europe who were forced to abandon their property or who were forced to sell it under duress.
So some of these monument men actually had some connections to the MFA.
We do have some Monuments Men connections. Actually, my favorite Monuments Man that's affiliated with the MFA was a woman. Her name was Ardelia Hall, and she worked in our Asian art department for 11 years before World War II. And after the war, she worked for the State Department. She was the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives Advisor. So she was basically the liaison between the Monuments Men and the State Department, and she oversaw the recovery and restitution of artwork that had been displaced during the war.
Well, that was going to be my question about the movie. I mean, because is it realistic that these guys were that knowledgeable that they would know, you know, a Picasso or a Monet? Did they know all that stuff?
Well, that is true, because these were very educated men, and they weren't these young GIs who were going over to Europe. And in fact, one of them, the character that George Clooney portrays, he also directed this film, came back and was the director ultimately of the Worcester Art Museum. He was also at the Gardner Museum. So these were people working in the art field. They were conservationists. They were museum directors. So not only did they have the full knowledge, but they were passionate about this. They wanted to go and save this art, and they also had the integrity of making sure that this art was going to be returned.
Some museums have been a little bit reluctant, not necessarily the MFA, but we've seen stories in recent years. I mean, why is that?
Well, I think, I don't know that I can't speak for other museums, obviously, but I think the MFA is in a position where we have allocated a full-time staff position to conducting this research, which is wonderful. And we are very fortunate to have that. We have a very strong web presence, so we can get our collection online. Perhaps there are smaller museums that might not have the resources to do this work, and it's just very difficult to find the time, to find the staff, to find the resources to get it done.
All right.
But I think one of the things to remember is it's very chilling to think about what could have happened to all these works, these masterpieces, including this gorgeous sculpture by Michelangelo and Rembrandt's and all of these other pieces, not to mention those were lost. But Hitler wanted to have this giant museum, and that's what they were all being collected for. So I think we came very close to losing a substantial amount of these works, depending on how the fighting in war would have gone.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how's the movie?
1.
Yeah.
Great subject matter, not a great film.
Victoria Reed, Jared Bowen, thanks.
Thank you.